Hello, everyone. This is Bobby C. with Anonymous Addiction. This is my truth about AA, as Bobby C. sees it, and I'm Bobby C. Today we're with JD. I met JD on Facebook. Of course, we're meeting a lot of different people on Facebook, and we're connecting. We're really connecting with a lot of different modalities and a lot of different methods, a lot of different creativity. It's more creative nowadays. You know, when I came in 37 years ago, we didn't even have the internet. Okay, so it was like, I was called an alcoholic, go to AA, and that was it. And I went, and everything was cool for a while, and I stayed in for many, many years. But that's besides the point. We're going to talk to JD. He's going to share a little bit about his story. He's going to share about his nonprofit. He's going to share a little bit about harm reduction. So let's get right into it. JD, thanks for coming on, buddy.
Thanks for having me on, Bobby. Yeah, so a little bit about me is I do have a nonprofit. It's and I have a podcast too, and they both have the same name. It's MJ's Progress, Not Perfection. MJ, like, Michael Jordan, you know what I mean? And it's my wife and I. We started it over the summertime, and we host meetings here. We host all different kinds, trauma meetings. We host meetings for LGBTQ groups. We host meetings for people that are just having anxiety, mental health meetings. You know what I mean? We call mental health check-ins, that kind of stuff. We do 12-step meetings also. We do 12-step for Matt, that kind of thing, because there's a lot of people that try to go into AA or NA and they're not able to get a sponsor because, they're using Vivitrol, they're using Suboxone, they're using methadone, they're using cannabis. I got lucky. I was able to get a sponsor. I've been through the steps, with AA, and my sponsor was okay with me using cannabis, but only because I got a sponsor in California. I was in Los Angeles and I had a sponsor that said, yeah, I'll do it with you. But in Pennsylvania, I couldn't get a sponsor that was willing to do it with me.
Let me ask you this, JD, let me just jump in. Let me ask you, do you have a sponsor right now today?
No, not an official one. I have mentors, you know what I mean? I have people in the program that I talk to, I do a fit step with all the time, but I don't have somebody who can say, yeah, Bobby C is my sponsor.
I don't have a sponsor. I don't have a sponsor.
No, I'm not.
So we're on the same page. No, cool. We're on the same page. I just want to bring the audience like where you were and where you are today, but keep bringing us through.
And I think it's important to know I don't sponsor myself either. I'm not sitting here saying, oh, I don't have a sponsor yourself, do that way. No, I have like 5 people I talk to. You know what I mean? There's different people I talk to about different things though. I'm not going to go to one person about a topic that I know they're not going to have any kind of background knowledge on. They're just going to give me what the book says.
Right.
I want to talk to people in recovery of all types of recovery. I do have people that I consider mentors in AA. They live all over the country, and I talk to them all the time, still to this day. But I have people in NA that I talk to from Los Angeles, 3,000 miles away all the time. People from NA here that I talk to in Pennsylvania, where I'm at.
Right.
And I grew up in Jersey. I have people from NA and AA. You and I happen to grow up in the same town. We met on Facebook, like you said, and a Facebook group with 10,000 people in it. And it turns out you graduated from the same school I graduated from 30 years earlier. You know what I mean? It's just how that works out. And it's not like our school's huge. We graduate 150 kids a year. Right. It's not like we went to a huge regional school in California.
Right.
We're from a small town school that one person got famous out of our high school, and it was Joe Flacco.
Right.
He was my quarterback in high school.
Yeah.
He's like the only person that made a household name from Audubon. Besides that, our whole 1 square mile town, 2 square miles tops.
Yeah.
You could walk everywhere. So I mean, that's how I grew up. I grew up walking everywhere around town, drinking out of Gatorade bottles, throwing that in. Do you curse? Throwing that shit into my, backpack, and just walking around town, man.
Yeah. Now you started, didn't you start? Did you went to rehab in California? Am I correct?
Yeah.
Yeah, you started. Yeah, tell me a little bit about that. That you kind of searched out a rehab that you were kind of looking for, which was very good.
All my using was done in Jersey, pretty much. Massachusetts, I would use it. North Carolina, I lived there. I was using a little bit, mostly drinking Coke. here and there a lot, but Jersey is where I did a lot of my using. And then when I went to rehab, it was to Los Angeles. That's why I have a huge support out there. I was watching a documentary on Netflix called Legend of 420. It's not on there anymore, unfortunately, but it had a bunch of different segments in there about cannabis being a medicine. One of them was like helping a 12-year-old kid with epilepsy, and one of the segments was about a rehab in Los Angeles called High Sobriety. And that rehab is, that they use cannabis there. They teach you how to change your relationship with marijuana. And I'm watching it, on 420, 2018. That was the first time where I was like, oh, I would do that. That's a rehab I would do. And then the next day I called them and they're like, yeah, we have a bed. And they got me in 3 days later,
Cool.
And then they got me into AA and going and working the steps. Just because you're using cannabis doesn't mean that I'm going to stay sober.
Now, Jay,
You know what I mean?
you know what, JD, let me ask you a question real quick. Did they kind of introduce you to other modalities like smart recovery or recovery Dharma or anything like that in that treatment center?
No, we're going to get you into meetings. You know what I mean? It's Los Angeles. If you've ever been in Los Angeles, you know how the meetings are there. It's like 300 a week.
Right.
There's no excuse to not be able to find a home group that you're comfortable with that many options. There's people in some towns like, where I am now, we're in the middle of nowhere. We have one home group. Right. You don't like that home group, you're driving to go to the next home group.
Right.
But in LA, you don't like the home group, you walk a few more blocks and you're going to find a home group that you fit in with.
Yeah, right. I live in Huntington Beach, California, Southern California, and I understand where JD's coming from, but California is the mecca of rehabs. Okay,
yeah,
we're the
especially
Southern California. That's where I'm
not even California in general, but Southern specifically. Where LA, where Huntington Beach, we are in the mecca because it's nice 12 months a year. You can have outdoor activities. You can do groups outside. I mean, there's a lot of things you can do for addicts when they're in recovery, early recovery, outside. We used to go on hikes and shit. Every Friday, if we were good, we got to go out and we went on a hike with a bunch of the staff and all that kind of stuff. So you can't do that everywhere in the country all year long.
Right. But luckily we do have the internet and there's Zoom meetings, which can never compare to the one-on-one personal meetings. But I'll tell you what, lately, 2 years, it's been about 2 years for me now doing these podcasts and being on the internet and Zoom and connecting with friends and stuff like that. And it's getting to be very comfortable for me now, even though I've started so many different types of meetings on the outside, and I'm looking forward to getting back and starting some more different types of meetings. So we can have interpersonal meetings, personal meetings where we could see each other and, it's just a lot better. But my point was that the recovery industry today, the treatment centers in the recovery industry, still today, they're not, let's say, promoting, because they promote the 12-step programs, most of them. It's like a monopoly. They're not promoting, like say, smart recovery Dharma, and Sinclair method, or the freedom model, or even harm reduction, like I would think that they would be. But I see a trend coming. I see it moving in that direction. And that's why I wanted to talk to you about harm reduction, because I know that what you're doing is actually doing that. You're expanding.
Well, I was going to say, there's a reason that you see it that way, though, in the treatment centers. It's not from like the higher ups that are like, you got to get them into meetings. Remember, a lot of the treatment centers, especially in Southern California, I'm sure across the country, especially in Florida also, I know in Florida, a lot of them are being the workers, the staff members that are in recovery themselves. They are going to meetings. They're the ones that are taking us to these meetings. I was going to random meetings in Santa Monica. It's because one of the staff members loved that meeting. So they would take us there. I was going to meetings at the Comedy Store in West Hollywood every Saturday at noon, because that staff member on Saturdays loved that AA meeting. He was the one driving what we call the druggy buggy, the dope fiend limousine, whatever you want to call it. He was the one driving that van full of addicts to these meetings. So, it's the staff also. So yeah, the change is trending because there's more people like myself, and there's more people that have been on my show too that are all about harm reduction, that are now working in recovery to help other people and to get this to go that direction. So it's a matter of just getting the people into it. It's almost like how cannabis wasn't accepted with politicians 30 years ago whatsoever, right? But those guys from 30 years ago, they were the old men that were born in 1900 that, you know, they were 30 when cannabis was outlawed in the 30s, and it's the devil, you know. And then there's me and my generation coming up who said, no, cannabis can be helpful. If
Right.
used right, cannabis can be good. But we're
Right.
not the old people yet making changes and doing the rules.
Right.
We're
Let's
the ones
talk.
breaking the rules.
Let's talk. Yeah. Well, you know what? As soon as they found out there's a lot of money to be made, the government gets involved in everything, and they'll regulate the shit out of it. Cheech and Chong had it right from the very beginning. Cheech and Chong said, "Grow it, smoke it, share it." You know, and that's the way it really should have been. But you know, once the government gets their hands on something, that means money. But let's get back to the harm reduction and maybe your use of cannabis and how you kind of use and or other people use. And you started a new meeting. I know somebody started the new Facebook meeting about. Matter of fact, I just joined today.
Yeah, it's me. Yeah.
Yeah. So share a little bit about that, JD.
Yeah. Yep. And we're gonna get into we're going to be doing the meetings virtually soon too. Right now we do the meetings only in person. We're going to be doing it online soon. Right now I'm trying to work out to get the internet up front where our meeting room is. I'm in a meeting center, but I'm in my podcast studio that's dropped in here. But anyway, with myself, with cannabis, like for when I was in addiction, my drugs more of whatever I was doing, whether I was drinking, whether I was doing coke, whether I was sniffing anything, I wanted more of it, right? So if I was smoking blunt after blunt after blunt, I wanted more of it, more of it, more of it. So to change my relationship, I don't smoke anymore. You know, still, I have smoked, I'm not going to lie, but I think I've smoked one time since May. So in the last 6 months, I might have like hit a joint a couple times. Besides that, I just use these little capsules that are like edibles. And when I eat something, I pop a capsule. Usually I take it with my blood pressure medicine. So it's basically like when I take my medicine, I take my medicine. Right. You know, and the whole point of when you smoke blunt after blunt is you want to get high right away. You want to feel the effects right away. When you take those capsules, you're talking an hour or two before you even start to kind of feel it. So I feel like for me, I'm not trying to escape my problems with a joint like I used to, as opposed to I know that I'm going to be achy. I know that I'm going to be in pain. I know that I'm going to get depressed. I know that I'm going to get anxiety because I do every day if I don't take it. But if I do take it, it's a much easier of a day because my brain operates a lot clearer with it running through my system the way that it does. And nobody would ever know that I use cannabis every day unless I wasn't so forthright about it. I mean, it's not like I'm sitting here talking to you going, and just being all like stoned out of my mind and not comprehensive. I can have a full conversation with you and know that I dosed 2 hours ago.
Yeah.
You know, and be completely okay.
Now, I look at it, I just, you know, me personally in my program, you know, look, anonymous addiction is all about no labels. I don't like to label people, okay? I don't label people addicts, alcoholics. I just don't do that anymore. It's like me taking a vitamin. I take melatonin at night. I take a little melatonin. I don't have to go around telling people I take melatonin. And I don't think people have to justify their behaviors or their use to other people to think that, oh, I'm okay and I need your validation. And I know, you know that we don't. So, you know, I don't buy any of that stuff. Hey, harm reduction is like, okay, somebody's using opioids and you know, they're shooting some heroin or they're doing some crystal meth all the time. And they're weaning themselves off, so they're using cannabis or what other type, or the harm reduction is about watching. Don't use alone, protecting themselves. It's reducing the harm of somebody. It's
about testing,
right?
Testing the level of fentanyl to make sure you don't die on that shot.
Right. You know? It's there for a purpose, and it's saving lives. So you know, I don't go around labeling people. Oh, you still use, you know, oh. How about Marijuana Anonymous. Did you ever go to a Marijuana Anonymous?
One by accident. So there was a weekend I was really into meetings, man. And in LA, it's really easy to get really into meetings because there's so many. And what do they always tell us? What's one of the first things they say about, all right, when you surrender, right? Say I was your sponsee, and I was like, all right, Bobby, you're my sponsor. What do I need to do now that you saw me at my first ever meeting? What do I need to do now that I have a book and you're my sponsor? You would then turn around and say, do 90 and 90. That's like the first suggestion you get, right?
Yeah.
So I'm like, all right, I'm an overachiever. I did 250 and 90,
right,
because it was LA and you can. And there was one weekend, I was like, I'm going to do 20 this weekend. I'm going to go to 20 meetings in 2 days. And I found a place it was a Friday, Saturday, Sunday. I was counting at the weekend, the West Hollywood Recovery Center. And it's an amazing place. It's kind of what this is modeled after. West Hollywood Recovery Center has, 6 or 7 different meetings a day there that are all different types of meetings. So to get my meetings in that weekend, I sat in on a Marijuana Anonymous meeting. I thought I had a chip somewhere for it, but I might have turned it down because I have like all my chips. I even have more somewhere on the table too for NA. Those are all my AA ones, and I have more in my car. But yeah, I went to one Marijuana Anonymous. And so harm reduction has a lot to do with, in my opinion, the first step. I correlate them, and because everyone gets confused. Everyone always says, oh, admitting it's the first step, right? And that's not the first step to me. The first step to me is it makes your life unmanageable. It's everything after the semicolon, because you can take that word alcohol and you can put anything there. If it makes your life unmanageable, then something's wrong with it. So if I'm using cannabis every day, but my life is thriving, how is my life unmanageable? If I'm doing well in a business, if I'm helping people with recovery, then yeah, obviously my life is not manageable and I don't have a problem with it.
Right. Yeah. Well, you know what? I equate that to cause and effect. Okay. Let me just talk about, you're talking about unmanageability or managing your life. When I talk, I usually talk about human beings in the world. I don't think we're that unique. Okay. So when I talk about cause and effect. So like for me, for instance, the circumstances or the consequences of my behavior kind of caused me to take really a deep look at it the last time and say, you know what, I need to make a big change. My wife introduced a friend of mine and sent him over, and he was a member of Alcoholics Anonymous, and he sat down with me. But it was me that said, I need help, because of the circumstances of the cause and effect, and the effect was me hurting everybody, my wife suffering, my kids, the job, my health, and all this other stuff. So I believe in cause and effect and the consequences of that cause and effect. So was my life completely unmanageable back then? No way, because I was still going to work. I was still paying the bills. I mean, let's face it, I still drove to the meeting. So my life had to be I had to have some manageability to even drive to a meeting. So I took care of my kids. I did the yard work and did the pool and stuff like that. And I know some people didn't. They hit their, let's just say, the word bottom. They hit a bottom and it was very, very, very low, maybe lower than mine. And maybe that applies to percentage of people. But, as far as drinking and drugging, if I didn't put it in my body, this is for me, because I tend to, I believe in abstinence for me. That's a personal choice. And in Anonymous Addiction, we believe in choices. You choose yours. Like, I believe actually, if I really look at it, I believe, JD, you are creating your own program, whether you like it or not, whether you say it or not, whether you think you got 10 sponsors and 10 mentors and all these other. I believe fully, you personally, because of your brain, your mind, your rational, logical, critical thinking, you are creating your own program. You're doing it in a beautiful way too. You're creating something that you enjoy, and this is how you like to, let's say, improve your life. And I admire that. That's why I have you, that's why I've asked you to come on, because I see what you're doing, and I validate that, I really admire that. So I believe most of recovery that this recovery industry is talking about is a placebo effect. Okay. We don't give enough credit to ourselves and our own awareness and awakening and our consciousness, this brain, this gift that we've been given, however it came about, that we have the ability to care, care. When they talk about care is one of the most important things. I care about myself.
Yeah, well, and as addicts and alcoholics, it's almost like inane to be empathetic. We're very empathetic people. We do care a lot. That's why we help other people once we do pay it forward. That's why we give it back once we get it, all that kind of stuff. But we're also quick to care about others, but also not give ourselves credit and see past our own victories. Even in sobriety, even putting a drink down and being abstinent. It just happened, this morning. My wife and I haven't had a drink it'll be 21 months at the end of this month that my wife and I haven't had a drink. And I was a drug addict. I mean, alcohol led me to drugs. I do identify as an alcoholic. You can identify as whatever you want. I have alcohol use disorder. I have substance use disorder, officially, SUD. But my wife's an alcoholic, alcohol use disorder alcoholic, where alcohol was her downfall. She hit bottoms with it and never went to drugs, but stuck with it through it. And we were at a wedding last night for a best friend. And she realized this morning, like, holy shit, I didn't even go for the drink at all. Like it's the first time that she didn't even think about not having a drink. She realized it registered 12 hours later that there was a champagne flute untouched on her table right in front of her, the entire night. And she didn't have to go to the open bar and any of that. And, it kind of like made her emotional because she had never gone this far without alcohol since she started as a young teenager 25 years ago. And now she can just go to a wedding for her best friend and not think twice about it. So, and she uses cannabis every single day like I do. She has MS. She was diagnosed a couple months ago. So she does smoke because she does need immediate relief. My symptoms don't say that I need immediate relief. Hers do. That's why she smokes. And again, I can sit with her all day long and she could smoke all day long next to me on the couch and I won't even have any edibles and I won't be triggered into like, I need to smoke that too. It doesn't do anything for me. The smoking does nothing for me. She can lay next to me in bed with a bong and it doesn't affect me whatsoever or make me go, I need to smoke. Give me your weed. It's not like that, and I think it has to do with your mind and what we can help train our minds in a way. This, and the steps do help too. I'm not going to lie. The steps did help me relieve some of that kind of obsession of the mind. But let's be real. It's perception. It's how I look at things and when you perceive things. If I perceive things as a negative, if I was to look at my wife and get, jealous and filled with rage, how come she can smoke and I can't smoke? This is bullshit. Guess what? I'm going to smoke. I'm going to smoke over it. And I'm going to go against my recovery program because of resentments that I brought up and I brought into my own life.
That's exactly right. Wherever the attention goes, the energy flows. I don't care what it is. So yep. Your attention, wherever your attention goes, wherever your mind goes. And I believe that what you just said, I'm going to read something. It says the mind ultimately directs and manifests all things in our environment for better or for worse. Whoever is directing the mind is also engineering the change. I believe that fully. I believe we can even change our DNA. It's scientifically proven that the mind through mindfulness can change DNA, and we change our thinking, we change our behaviors, we change our thoughts. And care, getting back to care, a lot of people understand, they use the word care like it's, what we care enough about to put our will behind, what we care enough to I know you care enough about your health, your future, your journey through life, you and your wife, your children, you give that energy and you give that care. So that's where your will goes. That's where your energy goes. That's where the flow goes. And It's positive. Not that I don't negate negative. There's negativity in the world that's going on, and I will not negate it. I will speak out against it. But I'm more, when I talk about positivity, I'm talking about in my body, mind, and spirit. I believe in spirit. I think you mentioned maybe you were agnostic. And
Yeah,
that's even a label too,
that
agnostic,
is.
atheist,
Well,
spirituality.
anything is a label, man. And we have to have labels because people have questions, people have curiosities. So we need labels so we can, across the board, somebody say, what do you believe in? And you know how much harder it is to explain agnostic as opposed to just say agnostic? I'd rather have the label than sit there and have a conversation about what it means to be agnostic.
Here's the thing though. You know what? I agree with you. But some labels can be eliminated, okay, so because of
Yeah.
stigma. Let me just point this. If I said I was spiritual, you can only understand my word, that label that I'm giving myself, through your own perspective of what you know about spirituality. So, or if
Can I say what I know about?
well, then if you say it, somebody's going to say, well, that's not what I know about it. Okay. Like atheist, agnostic. Okay. The word atheist, or let's use the word anarchist. Somebody said, you're an anarchist. They're labeling me as an anarchist, but maybe that's not how I'm labeling myself, but I believe in anarchy. But the way that the government or somebody else portrayed it and put reality into our brains, programmed us to think what atheist is, agnostic is, spirituality is. That's the only way we're going to perceive it,
Yeah, and perception is all up to the individual that's going to be perceiving anything
Right.
of what they are perceiving. It's almost like when I think I was on my third or fourth day in rehab, and I did rehab once. It was a one and done thing for me, and I was sitting in rehab, and it was just 3 or 4, detoxing, and my buddy asked me, we're still friends to this day. It's been 3.5 years. If I said I wasn't feeling happy, and he said, well, that's bullshit because happiness isn't a feeling, it's a choice. And it stuck with me. And I asked him to elaborate for me. And he said, I grew up in Portland, it rains all the time up there. So when I wake up, I have the choice to look out my window and see rain and be positive, or I have the choice to go about my day negative. I can say, oh, they're going to hit traffic, it's going to be this, there's going to be that because of the rain, and just you get that energy when you roll out of bed with all the negative. Or I can be like, all right, well, I can take my time going into work. I have an excuse now. It's going to rain. That means the flowers. I'll watch a nice movie tonight. And you try to be positive. You take that energy with you. But happiness is a choice. It's not a feeling. And that kind of blew me away because you felt happy, you felt sad. I didn't realize it. And it is a choice now that I've been practicing it that way and looking at things. And when something makes me upset right off the bat, initially, that initial response is upset. I take a second because I know with every negative is a positive. You just have to find a positive. Death can be a positive if you look for the positive. They're not in pain anymore. There's a lot of ways to spin death in a positive way. So there's a lot of ways to spin anything in a positive way. As long as you take the time to open up your mind to look for the positive, you're going to find it and then focus on that instead.
Exactly. Very beautiful. You know what, JD, we have these Zoom meetings are only 40 minutes, and we're going to kind of wind down. But JD and I'm going to jump on his podcast probably a little later today. So you'll be able to check more of our conversation in JD's podcast. But I'm going to be signing off. What would you like to tell the viewers before we leave, JD?
Yeah, my podcast is on YouTube. It's on Apple. It's on Google Podcasts. It's on Spotify Podcasts. On Facebook Podcast. It's called MJ's Progress on Perfection. I have like 50 episodes out already. That means 50 different stories of people's addiction.
Beautiful. Yeah, I've been listening to him. I started listening to him. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, check us out on Anonymous Addiction on YouTube. My other podcast, I'm going to say hi to Joey C., my other buddy, Joey C. over there. We're going to be doing a podcast on an Alcoholics Anonymous Deprogramming podcast. But check us out on Facebook, Spotify. Check JD out, and we'll be seeing you all later on the next podcast. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye. Say bye, JD.
See you there, guys.